Well, hey JT, it's been a long time, and we've been wanting to do this for a number of years, and I can't even remember when we first met. Do you remember when we first met?
I, I,
And
I I think it was in 2009 at a project we were doing in Franklin, just south of Nashville. And I
yeah,
remember because you and I were working on this house and we loaded up a truck and we both got in the truck and headed to the dump.
so the best relationships are started by getting in a truck and driving to the dump together
Yeah.
during a both hands project. Wow. To everybody, I've been wanting to share JT's story with you for a number of years, and JT, I'll let you take off with it and go ahead and just share what both hands is all about and how you got involved.
I love telling the story because I just think it's a story of just how things can happen. I was on the board of Bethany
Hmm.
Christian Services here in Nashville, and one year I was in charge of the fundraiser, and I chose to do a golf tournament. And it was a kind of golf tournament where you recruit about 20 people, and everyone, ask all of them to send letters out to their friends, say, "Would you sponsor me while I golf?" Anyway, I sent my letters out, and one of my buddies, who I was in a Bible study with, he sends my letter back to me, does not include a check. He just took a fine tipped magic marker and he scribbled across my letter. He said, "JT, if you told me you were working on a widow's house, I might sponsor you, but you're just golfing. Nice cause, but not my money." And I thought, I mean, it hurt my feelings a little bit, but at the
Sure.
same time, I thought, man, that's a really good idea, And I called him a couple of days later and we talked about it and laughed, and he still didn't give me any money. But the idea just never left me. Whenever I saw a 5K or a golf tournament after that, I kept thinking to myself, if all those people were working on a widow's house, would it be better? I mean, would it be meatier? Would it be better? I just didn't have the orphan part. I didn't have it all figured out until a couple years later. I'm in church. I run into a friend of mine. I hadn't seen him in a couple months. I said, "Hey, Don, what's up?" And he said, "I'm adopting 4 kids from Moldova."
Hmm.
And Don already has 3 kids at home. And I said, "What happened?" He said, "Well, I was on a mission with Sweet Sleep, delivering beds to orphanages in Moldova, and fell in love with this little boy, George, 8-year-old boy. And we became inseparable. When we got home, we started the adoption process. And in the process, we found out George has 3 siblings
Hmm.
because we're not going to break up the siblings." Well, immediately that took me back to when I was 12 years old, living on a farm in northeastern Iowa. There was 5 of us kids. And one weekend, my mom and dad left to celebrate their 16th wedding anniversary. And us kids were kind of farmed out to different places and everything. And I remember Saturday night being brought home. The neighbors were bringing me and one of my brothers home because mom and dad were coming home. And I played in the barn all day, so I was dirty. I had to go in the basement, to change. And he went in the front door. And I remember sitting in our basement on this chair, bending over, unlacing my boots. And my brother came down the basement stairs. I looked up at him and I said, "Are mom and dad home?" And he looked at me and he said, "Mom and dad are dead."
Hmm.
And I said, "What?" And he said, "Mom and dad are dead. They were killed in a car accident an hour ago."
Hmm.
And he turned around and walked upstairs. I mean, he had just heard himself as he walked through the front door and he was still processing. And boy, I remember hitting the floor. I remember in bawling like any 12-year-old, would bawl. I sat laid in that cold cement floor for about 10 minutes crying by myself. And I I I know what it's like to be an orphan. I know what it's like to hear those words. I know what it's like to wonder who's going to take care of us, what's going to happen now, and the thought was we're all going to get broken up. And I remember waking up the next morning and thinking it was all a dream, and then you realize this is not a dream. And but I also know what it's like to be rescued, because 3 months before the accident, my mom and dad and my aunt and uncle, my mom's sister and her husband, they changed their wills that if
Hmm.
anything would happen to one of the couples, the other couple would take them. Well, my aunt and uncle lived in a very nice suburb of Milwaukee called Brookfield. They had 3 kids of their own. They were 33 years old. They
Wow.
just started business a year earlier. They took in all 5 of us.
Wow.
I mean, I know what it's like to have someone come up and say, "We got you. We got you." It may not always be pretty, but we got you. And so back to the hallway in church when Don says he's not going to break up the siblings. I mean, I'm the just right guy to say that to, because I'm not going to sit there and say, "Are you sure?" I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, wow, here's a man who's got a lot of faith. He's stepping out and doing something that I don't know if I'd have the faith to do. And I just looked at Don. I said, "Don," and by then we had adopted, our 5th child's adopted from China. I said, "Don, how much is this going to cost?" He said, "I don't know. They're telling us $70,000 or $80,000. I said, "Do you have any idea how you're going to raise that money?" He said, "No." And I said, "I think I got an idea." And so, I mean, long story short, Don and we recruited about 13, 14 friends of ours. We all sent letters out to everyone we knew. We said, "Would you sponsor me for the day while I work on this widow's house? Let me tell you about Miss Lucille. And then all the money I raise is going to go towards the cost of getting these 4 kids home from Moldova." And we found a widow in just south of Nashville and Franklin. And we got all the supplies donated because everyone we talked to, merchants, they love the idea. And they just said, "Yeah, dude, what do you need?" And we spent the day working on her house. I think about 35 people showed up. I mean, it was a beautiful day. I'll never forget it. And everyone had a blast. And we did a number on that widow's house. I mean, it was transformed. And when it was all over, said and done with, we'd raised right around $70,000.
Wow.
I mean,
Yeah, what a story.
I was expecting 15 maybe, but 70, I thought, whoa, it's like we're almost standing on holy ground here. This is widows and orphans. And but it was so much fun. And about 6 months later, another friend of mine came up to me and said, "Hey, I heard what you did with Don. Would you help me?" And I said, "Well, yeah, let's do it again." It was fun. And so about a year after that first one, we did the second one, Bill and Lisa Kersey, and they were adopting a little boy from Guatemala. They needed to raise about 13,000. I think we raised about 12,000. But and I remember that day so well too, because it was April of 2008, the spring in Nashville. It was beautiful. And we put a new roof on this lady's house.
Wow.
I mean, and we got that donated. And I remember being on the roof and working that gun, and I was doing a little work, shingle work, and I looked around and I saw, we had transformed this lady's front yard, we transformed the backyard. I counted 54 people.
Mm.
And then I looked at the street and I saw 19 cars lined up. I counted them. I thought, what a picture this is to the community about how to take care of a widow. She'd lost her husband 7 months earlier in a car accident. They had a 4th grader and an 8th grader. And it was one of my son's teachers earlier in his life. And it was just such a blessing to her. But it took it, that scene, Greg, it took me back to the farm. I remember about a month after the accident, getting off the bus on the farm. Now, my 2 little sisters were 3 and 5 years old at the time of the accident. They moved in to Milwaukee with my aunt and uncle right away. Us 3 boys, we were 7th, 8th, and 9th grade. We stayed on the farm to finish the school year out. And also my dad had a brother who was business partner. He lived with us, Uncle Clifford. And there's about 400 acres. Back in 1969, you really, farming wasn't a one-man operation then, and we had cattle and hogs. And so us kids had to stay on the farm to help with the farm and to finish the school year out. But I remember about a month after the accident, getting off the school bus, and our bus stop was about a half a mile from the house. It was on a hill. You can see a lot of our farm. And I looked in our fields, and there were all our neighbors with their tractors and their plows and their discs and their planters, and they were planting our crops.
Mm.
I mean, it was Bob Grana, Leland Meyer, Everett Ellison, Ed Cooper, Doc Weimeller, Jack Melcher, Bert Juvic. I mean, when you're 12 years old, you know whose tractor's who, you know, and these are my dad's buddies taking care of their buddies' kids. They were planting our crops. I mean, I know what it's like to have your feet washed and have absolutely no way to repay it. And when I was standing on that roof, counting those 19 cars, I thought, this is living. This, and then that night, my wife and I went out to eat, and I was so fired up. I mean, and she was, you know, she was a stay-at-home homeschooling mom, 5 kids. And I said, I think I'm supposed to start this. And, you know, admittedly, her comment was, have you thought about health insurance? Have you thought about, you know, a paycheck? And, and I said, yeah. What would you think about you going to work outside the home? And she did. She got a job at a Belmont University in admissions, and eventually she worked her way up. She's now the vice president of an organization, the largest women's public policy group in DC, and she's doing some great work there too. But I started both hands in August of 2008, and since then, this is my favorite part. We've done 1,126 projects in 44 states, and 1,367 kids are no longer orphans, and 1,220 widows have been served, and we've raised $14.7 million for families to use for adoptions. And I should say this, of that 14.7 million, 100% of that money has gone to the families, to the adoptions. Both Hands doesn't take anything out for our operations or anything like that. And we have a staff, but we haven't missed any payrolls because people have been faithful. And I have to give a shout out to all the folks here on, you know, that participate in Retail Orphan Initiative, because you guys have faithfully just every year, Greg, helped us keep this train rolling down the track by helping us, you know, with operations. So you guys have made a huge, huge impact on what we do.
We're just a very tiny part about it. You know, I think one of the things that's unique about you sharing this right now is a lot of the retailers that have supported you with gift cards and stuff for the projects for those widows are on the call right now. But they don't even know that their local stores have been doing this and helping you. So that's really fabulous. But you know, I know adoption's been hard. It's been really hard since the pandemic in particular. So you guys have opened it up, and I think there's an opportunity for some of the companies that are on here to potentially do projects to support local nonprofits where they are as well. So tell us about that program and what you guys are doing now.
Like in 2018, we were just clipping along. 2018 was our very best year. We did 132 projects. I mean, it was amazing. And then 2019, we did 118 or 120, something like that. But then the virus hit. And we did, and then all of a sudden, all the international adoptions just stopped. Right. And so we ended up doing about, I think, 66 projects in 2020. And this past year, we did about 55 or 56 projects. A couple international ones, but mostly domestic ones, you know, birth mom, you know, folks adopting infants and things like that. So we just thought, well, we have in my opinion, this is one of the best fundraising models there is. So we're helping any group that wants to help with foster care or anything that's really tied to helping orphans or kids that are in trouble or anything like that. We're just a group. Like it could be a group from church. It could be a company's group. You know, it's a great team building exercise where they just find a widow in their community and they can serve the widow. It doesn't have to be all day. It can be 3-4 hours. And if they want to raise money, there's a couple ways to do it. Obviously, the way we do is we send letters. Families do it. They send letters out to their friends if they want to do that. But even just putting some stuff on social medias, you know, those kind of things. You can still raise some funds for your favorite cause or a
Yeah.
cause that helps kids in some way. So we're excited about what can mean for that, because it's so much fun. I mean, so many people I've talked to who've worked on a project. I mean, I've heard people say, JT, that was one of the best days of my life. I've never given my life away like that, and watch the face of a widow just brighten when she sees her kitchen redone, or she sees, you know, her yard, her landscaping and everything. It's just, it's a blast. It's so much
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah. And I can attest to that because you know, you get worn out doing your honey-do list at your house and stuff, but you don't feel as well as you do when you work a both hands project and you're worn out at the end of the day, and the camaraderie that comes with a business or a group of people that you're working on. I know the one that we met on, they raised $24,000 there for a widow right here in Franklin, for the Minovich family. But I know there's a lot of people on this call that are companies that are saying, hey, I'd love to have my company get involved with things like this. And it really, as long as the charity is somehow tied to kids or orphans or vulnerable children, there's an opportunity to do things with a both hands project. In fact, just yesterday, a friend from 25 years ago, she has a special needs son, and their school, a special needs school, wants to do a fundraiser, and she puts it out on Facebook for her birthday. And I think $155 came in. I said, you need to go to both hands, because something special happens when you start doing it, whether it's a widow or you're fixing a nursing home, a bigger project. Just it's just awesome to be able to
Yeah.
do. Well,
And I think what makes it so powerful is because you're not just asking people for money. I don't have a problem with that. I think those are great ways to raise money too. But in this case, of both hands, you're doing something. And
yeah,
for some reason, somebody who would give $50 to just an organization, you know, or to you if you're raising money, when they see you fixing up a widow's house, I mean, they'll give 200 or 300, you know,
yeah.
and some people will say, wow, this widow's being served. And it's just, the generosity is just amazing. What we've seen happen, boy, some of the stories, it's just amazing.
Yeah, well, you guys are a credit, honestly, to me not being able to keep my big mouth shut. So tell the story about what happened at CAFO.
Yeah, well, we met in 2009, if I'm recalling correctly, and then the next year at CAFO, we were in a breakout meeting. I think it was a fundraising one, or how to raise funds, and you and I were sitting next to each other, and when the meeting was over, you know, and both hands, no one knew who both hands was then. We'd done probably 15 projects, you know, and you got up and said, hey, by the way, there's a guy over here. He's got an organization. You can raise money and serve a widow at the same time, and blah, 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 blah. And next thing I knew, I turned around, there was 5 people lined up to talk to me. And I said,
Yeah.
I went home and told my wife, let me tell you what Greg did.
Yeah, well, I can't keep my mouth shut. It gets me in trouble a lot, but sometimes it works out real well, and connecting people is the best. So, buddy, it's great to have you. Thanks for sharing your story. Gosh, some other time we'll have to share the adoption story of how your wife approached you about adopting a child sometime, because that's an awesome story as well. But man, appreciate your time. Thanks so much for joining.
Yeah, and if someone wants to contact us, just go to, you know, bothhands.org, and they can find a way to get in touch with us. It's pretty simple, and we'll
Yep.
gladly help them. What I do is I coach all the families and all the organizations through the project. So, and we've got a toolkit. It's all laid out. It's really a lot of fun.
Yeah, and
So,
that link is in the chat for everybody, so you can learn more about JT's organization right there. Well, JT, thanks so much, man.
thanks, Greg.
Great to see you.
Good seeing you.